is involved with a monstrous lie to our kids, and it's not right.
Okay, thank you. So let me follow on that. You mentioned the phrase Ponzi scheme. Just this morning, your former political advisor, Karl Rove, said that kind of provocative language could be toxic, as he put it, in a general election. Vice President Cheney gave an interview today to ABC News when he said it's not a Ponzi scheme. Quote, it's a program that a great many people depend on. My understanding is you're standing by every word you've written in that book.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
You know, Carl has been over the top for a long time in some of his remarks. So, you know, I'm not responsible for Carl anymore. But the fact is,
Vice President Cheney, though, said it's not a Ponzi scheme. You say it is.
Absolutely. If Vice President Cheney or anyone else says that the program that we have in place today and young people who are paying into that expect that program to be sound and for them to receive benefits when they reach retirement age, that is just a lie. And I don't care what anyone says. We know that. The American people know that. But more importantly, those 25 and 30-year-olds know that.
Thank you. Governor Time. Governor Romney, let's be blunt. Let's be blunt. Democrats are itching to use that kind of provocative language against Republicans, yet you acknowledge yourself that Social Security has funding problems. How do you have a candid conversation about Social Security without scaring seniors?
Well, the issue is not the funding of Social Security. We all agree and have for years that the funding program of Social Security is not working, and Congress has been raiding the dollars from Social Security to pay for annual government expenditures. That's wrong. The funding, however, is not the issue. The issue in the book Fed Up, Governor, is you say that by any measure, Social Security is a failure. You can't say that to tens of millions of Americans who live on Social Security and those who have lived on it. The governor says, look, states ought to be able to opt out of Social Security. Our nominee has to be someone who isn't committed to abolishing Social Security, but who's committed to saving Social Security. We have always had, at the heart of our party, a recognition that we want to care for those in need, and our seniors have the need of Social Security. I will make sure that we keep the program and we make it financially secure. We save Social Security. And under no circumstances would I ever say, by any measure, it's a failure. It is working for millions of Americans, and I'll keep it working for millions of Americans. And we've got to do that as a party.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Perry, a 30-second rebuttal. Governor Romney said Vice President Cheney is right, and you're wrong about Ponzi scheme.
Well, here's, again, we're not trying to pick fights here.
Understood.
We're about fixing things. You can either have reasons or you can have results. And the American people expect us to put results in place. You cannot keep the status quo in place and not call it anything other than a Ponzi scheme. It is. That is what it is. Americans know that. And regardless of what anyone says, oh, it's not, and that's provocative language, maybe it's time to have some provocative language in this country and say things like, let's get America working again and do whatever it takes to make that happen.
John, I think the American people would like to hear a solution.
Okay.
Do you want to hear some more rhetoric, or you want to hear a solution? I happen to believe that, yes, Social Security, it needs fixing, not continuing to talk about it. I believe in the Chilean model, where you give a personal retirement account option so we can move this society from an entitlement society to an empowerment society. Chile had a broken system the way we did 30 years ago. The worker was paying 28 cents on a dollar into a broken system. They finally awakened and put in a system where the younger workers could have a choice. Novel idea. Give them a choice with an account with their name on it, and over time, we would eliminate the current broken system that we have. That is a solution to the problem, rather than continuing to talk about how broken it is. Let's just fix it using the Chilean model.
Thank you. Good. Congressman Paul. We've been talking just now about Governor Perry's rhetoric, but let's talk about his record. Just this morning, your campaign put out a statement accusing him of pushing for bailout money, supporting welfare for illegal immigrants, and trying to forcibly vaccinate 12-year-old girls against sexually transmitted disease. He's your home state governor. Is he less conservative than meets the eye?
Much more so, yes. Just take the HPV. Forcing 12-year-old girls to take an inoculation to prevent this sexually transmitted disease. This is not good medicine, I do not believe. I think it's social misfit. It's not good social policy, and therefore I think this is very bad to do this. But one of the worst parts about that was the way it was done. You know, the governorship in Texas traditionally is supposed to be a weak governorship. I didn't even know they could pass laws by writing an executive order. He did it with an executive order, passed it. The state was furious, and the legislature overwhelmingly, probably 90%, I don't know exactly, overwhelmingly repealed this. But I think it's the way it was passed, which was so bad. I think it's a bad piece of legislation, but I don't like the idea of executive orders. I, as president, will not use the executive order to write laws.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor Perry, we'll get to you, but Congresswoman Bachmann, this is an issue you've also talked about, HPV.
Well, what I'm very concerned about is the issue of parental rights. I think when it comes to dealing with children, it's the parents who need to make that decision. It is wrong for government, whether it's state or federal government, to impose on parents what they must do to inoculate their children. This is very serious, and I think that it's very important, again, that parents have that right. Education reform is another area. That's where I cut my teeth in politics, was being involved in education reform, because the problem you see is one of framing. It's the idea is, should the federal government control these areas, or should parents and localities control these areas? We have the best results when we have the private sector and when we have the family involved. We have the worst results when the federal government gets involved, and especially by dictate to impose something like an inoculation on an innocent 12-year-old girl. I would certainly oppose that.
Thank you. Governor Perry, we've had candidates talking about you.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
hear from you.
I kind of feel like the piñata here at the party. So,
welcome.
But here's the facts of that issue. There was an opt-out in that piece of, it wasn't legislation, it was an executive order. I hate cancer. We passed a $3 billion cancer initiative that same legislative session, of which we're trying to find over the next 10 years cures to cancers. Cervical cancer is caused by HPV. We wanted to bring that to the attention of these thousands of tens of thousands of young people in our state. We allowed for an opt-out. I don't know what's more strong for parental rights than having that opt-out. There's a long list of diseases that cost our state and cost our country. It was on that list. Now, did we handle it right? Should we have talked to the legislature first before we did it? Probably so. But at the end of the day, I will always err on the side of saving lives.
Yes, sir. Senator Santorum, one final note on this book, Fed Up. Governor Perry says in his book that it was, quote, unprincipled for Republicans to vote in favor of creating the Department of Homeland Security. You were one of those Republicans who voted yes. Respond.
We created the Department of Homeland Security because there was a complete mess in the internal in protecting our country. We had all sorts of agencies that had conflicting authority. We had no information sharing that was going on. This was right after 9/11. We saw the problems created as a result of 9/11, and we put together a plan to try to make sure that there was better coordination. I want to get back to this Gardasil issue. You know, we have Governor Perry's out there and claiming about states' rights and states' rights. How about parental rights being more important than states' rights? How about having, instead of an opt-out, an opt-in? If you really cared, you could make the case, instead of forcing me as a parent, and I have 7 children too. The wide receivers here have on the ends here have 7 children each. But I am offended that the government would tell me, and by an executive order, without even going through the process of letting the people have any kind of input. I would expect this from President Obama. I would not expect this from someone who's calling himself a conservative governor.
Time.
John.
Governor Romney, you've been listening to this exchange. Who's got the better end of it?
You know, I believe in parental rights and parental responsibility for our kids. My guess is that Governor Perry would like to do it a different way. Second time through, we've each taken a mulligan or two, and my guess is that that's something you'd probably do a little differently. Second time, he just said he'd rather do it through legislation next time through, and I recognize he wanted very badly to provide better health care to his kids and to prevent the spread of cancer. I agree with those who said he went about it in the wrong way, but I think his heart was in the right place. Right now, we have people who on this stage care very deeply about this country. We love America. America's in crisis. We have some differences between us, but we agree that this president's got to go. This president's a nice guy. He doesn't have a clue how to get this country working again. And
Ryan.
Speaker Gingrich, 30 seconds. I have another line of questioning. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to go back, Frank, to the Homeland Security question, because it's important for us to confront this. I helped develop the model for Homeland Security. It hasn't been executed well. The fact is, we have enemies who want to use weapons against us that will lead to disasters on an enormous scale. And the original goal was to have a Homeland Security Department that could help us withstand up to 3 nuclear events in one morning. And we need to understand, there are people out there who want to kill us, and if they have an ability to sneak in weapons of mass destruction, they're going to use them. We need to overhaul and reform the department, but we need some capacity to respond to massive events that could kill hundreds of thousands of Americans in one morning.
Congressman Paul, this same line, you want to abolish the TSA. What would exist in its place?
Well, the airlines are responsible for carrying their cargo and their passengers. I mean, why should we assume that a bureaucracy can do better? And look at the monstrosity we have at the airports. These TSA agents are abusive. Sometimes they're accused of all kinds of sexual activities on the way they maul people at the airports. So the airlines could do that.
Your best at LAX tonight.
I would think the airlines should treat passengers as well as a company that hauls money around, and they protect their money. They have private guards, and they could do it. Just remember, 9/11 came about because there was too much government. Government was more or less in charge. They told the pilots they couldn't have guns, and they were told never to resist. They set up the stage for all this. So no, private markets do a good job in protecting, much better than this bureaucracy called the TSA. Let me tell you.
Let me ask you about something else. It's related in a way, has to do with Mother Nature. Before the broadcast, Senator Santorum's got flooding today in Pennsylvania. Governor Perry is just back from the wildfires out east. Category 1 storm laid waste to entire areas. There's standing water tonight. Patterson, New Jersey, many of the towns around where I live, 8 days without power. We had people eating in outdoor and public parks because the supermarkets were closed down. The question is, federal aid, something like FEMA. If you object to what it's become and how's it's run, your position is to remove it, take it away, abolish it. What happens in its absence?
Well, what happened before 1979? We didn't have FEMA, and that FEMA just conditioned people to build where they shouldn't be building. We lose the market effect of that. But yeah, my position is we should have never had it. There's a much better way of doing it. I mean, this whole idea that the federal government can deal with weather and anything in the world, just go to the federal government. FEMA's broke. They're $20 billion in debt. But I'm not for saying tomorrow close it down. A lot of people pay the insurance. I worked real hard to make it work, and I did that in my district too. But I'll tell you how we should do it. We're spending, believe it or not, this blew my mind when I read this, $20 billion a year for air conditioning in Afghanistan and Iraq, in the tents over there, and all the air conditioning. Cut that $20 billion out, bring it home, take 10 off the debt, and put 10 into FEMA or whoever else needs it, child health care or whatever. But I'll tell you what, if we did that and took the air conditioning out of the green zone, our troops would come home, and that would make me happy.
Mr. Cain, along these same lines, Majority Leader Eric Cantor has said that federal disaster aid, this has been a big discussion of late, shouldn't be given out unless there are kind of concurrent spending cuts to offset the cost. Do you join in on that?
I believe that there's enough money to go around, and I believe that, yes, you can find the concurrent spending cuts in order to be able to do that. No, don't eliminate FEMA. Let's fix FEMA. Let's fix Homeland Security. There's a responsible way for the federal government to do the things that it should do. Running organizations like the TSA, I would agree with Representative Paul. No. having the federal government responsible for trying to micromanage Medicare? No. Trying to micromanage education? No. The federal government is not good at micromanaging anything. This is why I believe in empowering the states to do more and limit what the federal government does with regard to those kinds of programs.
Governor Huntsman, you know, the upside to this is I guess you could fly with your shoes on. The downside is who does the job the next day.
Let me just say, while this is an important discussion that we're having, we've spent about 15 minutes now on Homeland Security. The greatest gift we could give this country on the 10th year anniversary, Rick, is a Homeland Security Department that really works, that doesn't give people a sense when they walk through they're going to get shot.